Hello and welcome to the continuing series of videos produced by the Wisconsin After School Network to help you start an after-school program. This video will provide a first look at developing policies and procedures. We will address what policies and procedures are, how they differ from one another, why they're necessary for your program to develop and follow. We will then discuss important policies to develop, guidelines for development, and next steps in policy and procedure development. You may wonder, with all that you must do to start an after-school program, why policy and procedure development is important. Can this work wait? The short answer is no. Depending on how your program is funded and regulated, you may be required to have some basic policies in place before you're able to operate. Also, all programs are required to comply with certain laws, government codes, and standards for employees, children, and families. A few examples include the Occupational Health and Safety Association, or OSHA, and Americans with Disabilities Act, but there are many others. Relevant policies and procedures address how those requirements are met in your agency. On a practical day-to-day level, policies taken together form the foundation of how things work in your after-school program. So let's talk a little bit more about what that means. First, policies and procedures essentially define how staff and administrators operate and administer the program on a day-to-day basis, how every aspect of the program is carried out, what to do, and in some cases, what not to do. In other words, they provide a framework for daily operations. Policies also provide a basic level of consistency and predictability in the program from day to day and from staff to staff. Staff, children, and families then know what to expect. Written policies and procedures also provide a guide for families, so they understand how their program for their children works and understand their responsibilities, what they are to do and not to do, and what the program is responsible for in the provision of childcare. Policies and procedures are developed to align with the agency's mission and program goals, so that staff and administrators don't have to guess what decisions and practices are acceptable. And having policies in place and followed, staff and administrators are able to focus their attention on the new and unexpected that occurs each day, the emergencies, the exceptions, and staff can focus on the key aspects of their role, building relationships with each child, getting to know and plan for children's interests and skills, and supporting children's growth and development. Some of your written policies will also include procedures. Think of policies as the bottom lines of major operational issues, the what that's to be done, and possibly the why. Procedures have a narrower focus. They typically provide specific steps to be taken in implementing a policy. Procedures may change more often also for a variety of reasons. So, for example, an admission policy might state that a family is to notify the program when their child will be absent. A procedure will state how this is to be done. Another example, health and safety policies typically include how emergency situations are handled in the program, including the circumstances for evacuating the building and for sheltering in place. An evacuation procedure listed in health and safety policies includes the steps that staff follow to evacuate the building with children. It's important to note that all policies do not have procedures. Create them when needed, include them in the appropriate written policy, and post them if needed and useful. For example, posting evacuation procedures by an exit door, posting hand washing procedures next to the hand washing sink. For the purposes of this video, after-school policies and procedures fall into 4 broad categories. From an organizational perspective, These categories may serve as the section headers in your policy manual that you maintain both electronically and in hard copy. They include administrative policies, personnel policies, program policies, and health and safety. Although health and safety is an integral component of your program, it is larger in both scope and quantity of policies, so I've placed it in its own category. In an upcoming video, these categories will be used to help you create an employee manual and a family handbook. Some administrative policies include your organizational structure, which is the flow chart within the agency, and reporting relationships. In other words, who supervises whom. Diversity, equity, and inclusion statements that are a part of an agency or program's mission that in turn guide the program philosophy and all policies, procedures, and practices. Your program may be administered by a board of directors or have an advisory group consisting of various agency staff, parents, and/or community members to hire and evaluate the director and provide oversight of major financial, policy, and program matters. Written policies and procedures might define roles and responsibilities of this group, member selection and replacement, and information about meetings. If your program is fee-based, policies and procedures are needed that outline all fees families are charged, as well as billing and fee payment, overdue accounts, and sources accepted by the program for tuition assistance. Personnel policies address the wide range of policies and procedures related to your staff. Perhaps you can think of topics within your organization that need to be spelled out in addition to those that are listed here. On the other hand, it may not be obvious why a particular policy or procedure included on this list may be necessary. Let's look at a policy on staff probation, for example. Does your agency require each employee to serve a standard probationary period, typically 3 to 6 months? This would be included in the policy along with what happens at the end of this period, such as an evaluation, wage increase, or start of certain benefits. But what if there are still questions about the newly hired staff person? Can the probationary period be extended? If so, the reasons for and length of an extension of probation are also included. This policy, like so many, can support the administrator in making staffing decisions, and it provides some clear expectations and information for staff. Hours of work is another important area to address in personnel policies, as well as job descriptions and work agreements. The goal here is to provide a description of all work hours required of staff. That not only includes the hours when the program is open, but also when staff are to set up and prepare the program, as well as additional weekly planning time they might receive, and any site or agency meetings, training sessions, family or school events, and individual continuing education hours they must complete. And what about the days that when child numbers are low? Low needs time is a practice in which the number of staff is reduced. In other words, staff are sent home on any given day when numbers fall below a certain level. Is this practice followed by your program? If so, it's critical that it be explained in writing, since this practice reduces staff hours worked as well as pay. As its name implies, program policies have to do with your program for children. They include the basic program design and structure. In these policies is the description of who you serve, when you are open and closed, how a child joins the program, whether it's a drop-in or enrolled program, and how you handle children's attendance and absence. Program policies define the principles of your program practices, including non-discrimination in enrollment and programming, and elements such as your food program, any program provided transportation, family communication, and involvement. The program's design is an area of program policies as well, to include basic elements such as the program's philosophy, the daily schedule, key program elements or components, field trips, and cultural diversity. Health and safety policies deal with what you do in your program to both prevent illness and respond to children when they become ill in your program, as well as what to do to prevent accidents and how you respond to accidents and emergencies of all kinds when they occur. As you begin to write a given policy, it's important to ask yourself some questions. Answers to these questions can tell you whether or not you need a new policy, or whether you can simply add to a policy that already exists and any required content you want to be sure and include. Some questions include, what is the purpose of the policy and why, or in other words, why you need it? What questions the policy should answer? Regulatory or funding requirements? What existing agency policies are related to this one? Who will be affected, children, staff, or parents, and how their needs and views will be considered? And does the policy make clear what is expected of each party? Think through and include staff in your plan to roll out a new policy. Decide a timeline and rollout process based on how much change this new policy will create and who it will affect. Changes that may seem relatively simple or straightforward may cause significant confusion or inconvenience for families. For example, adding a fee for picking up children late could impact some parents a great deal. A rollout plan should include ample advance notice to families and multiple means of announcing this change. Before a given policy is approved, it should also be screened. Think of who you may have on staff and among your parent group or people you know outside the agency who can read and review the policy to determine if it says what you want, if it's clear and understandable, and if it's complete yet not too lengthy. Procedures follow the same process, and when policies are written clearly, procedures are much easier to write. Refer back to slide 6 if you'd like an example of a connected policy and procedure. And since your policies may exist far beyond your tenure and certainly your memory, it is helpful to place the date of approval and/or revision on each policy. So that policies remain accurate and up to date, they should be reviewed by the administrator, a policy review team called together for this purpose, or your advisory group or parent board of directors. Some agencies review policies at the same time. Others review half of their policies each year or every 6 months. How it is done is entirely up to you and your organization. For more detailed information on policies and procedures, one useful tool is available on the Wisconsin Department of Children and Families, or DCF, website noted here. It was created for programs that are licensed by the state of Wisconsin. However, it's a useful tool for your program, whether your program is licensed or licensed exempt. I hope you have found this information useful. The next video that will be available from the Wisconsin After School Network will be an overview of a quality program for children, as well as a video on staffing consideration. Thank you and best of luck as you develop your program.